Hello and welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey, and it's a researcher's report tonight. We've got a great guest. Also stepping in for Mark, not for Mark, for Kerry, of course.
What's
Mark's
happening? How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Good.
So our guest tonight, of course, Randy Harrington. I'm pretty sure everybody will know who Randy is. I really love talking to Randy and his research, and him and Shane, actually, the stuff that they do. Kind of always think out of the box as well with and experimenting. But Randy, you came on a bit back, and I know most people will know your encounter, the one that the two that were on the back of the truck. You've got some new stuff since then, but just can we go into that encounter just briefly, an outline, and I'll put a link into the show that Randy was on where he tells his whole encounter in a lot of detail. This is at Chickasaw National Park, Oklahoma. Let's get into it.
Okay. Well, campsite 30 at Rock Creek at the Chickasaw National Park. I've told this story a million times. You have to have heard it. If not, she's going to give you a link to go back and listen to it. But I'm just going to give you a real quick overview. Sat in that campsite one night with my windows taped up with blankets so that nothing could see me. Eventually, a large male and a juvenile came into my campsite. Some fantastic observations, their behaviors, what they did, all of these things took place, and I had a visual of both of them, and the large male for quite a while at the back corner of my truck with lots of details. This show is going to be about the things that happened after that. I went back to that park so many times, trying to recreate, trying to trick them, trying to do all of these things. And I did get some really, really good evidence from that park. They are clearly there. And I actually spoke with a lady who recently told me, but her encounter actually happened when she was a teenager, and she's a woman now. But when she was a teenager, she told me that 3 miles north of the main road coming into Sulphur there's a creek called Guy Sandy that comes down, and it's a little bit west of the park that I had my encounter in, but it's still very much wooded, and it's called Guy Sandy Creek because the bed is very sandy. That's where I've got a couple of really good footprints from shortly after my encounter. I was over there looking around, and I found some good prints. And so about 3 miles north of there, it actually goes under a highway. That creek goes under a highway and then goes through a lot of rural land all the way up, as far as the eye can see, with no houses. I mean, I was looking at the creek today on Google Map, and there's no houses on this creek. It's just through fields and through big brushy tree areas and woods. And so it comes out very close to this church where it has a cemetery behind the church. And this woman, as a teenager, had an encounter there where something popped up out of the grass from this trail at the backside of this church that goes through the woods down to the cemetery. And she, at the time, thought it was a wild person, a hippie, somebody that shouldn't be there. And she called her brother, and her brother come running down there, and he and his friends went running through the field. And she said, he's a track star and he was fast, but this thing was faster and was gone. But at that time, she thought it was a person, and the teenage brother and his friends were going to be tough guys and flush them out, whoever they were hiding in there. And, next thing you know, it's gone. But she described bushy headed thing standing up in chest deep grass where she just saw the head, and it looked like unkept hair, she would describe a hippie as looking like in the dark. Needless to say, on the outskirts of that wooded area that's around the cemetery is Guy Sandy Creek, and it's 3 miles away from the park. So even my friend Keith, who introduced me to the park way back in 2005, told me that they were traveling Guy Sandy Creek, and he said they were going under that underpass. We don't know where they go. I'd have to get on the map and follow that creek to see just where it ends up north, but I'm sure it ends up at another lake somewhere, I'm sure, because there's so many lakes all over Oklahoma. But clearly a nice little travel route with not a whole lot of houses on it at all, that they could easily, stay down inside the banks of this thing and not be seen, and, follow the brush patterns and all that kind of stuff. But it's got me really excited about the place. Me and Shane are saving up right now for a $10,000 thermal drone. We've been so lucky with our handheld thermal that we just think the next step is to have a drone that has the thermal capabilities. And I'm thinking of the Chickasaw Park, how incredible it would be to go spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks there. And you could probably go up and down Rock Creek with a thermal drone camera all night long. I know you could find these things. I know you could see them. So clearly,
and there's some open spaces there as well, isn't there? There's an open field.
Yeah. I mean, I actually caught one in Rock Creek with my thermal camera 4 years to the night of my encounter. I was back there with my thermal camera, and I was going to the Rock Creek from campsite 30 about every 15 minutes. I'd go to the creek and I'd pan up and down the creek and look with my thermal camera. Somewhere around midnight or shortly after midnight, I go over there and I look down the creek, and there was something standing in the creek, in the water. And that water's like 32 degrees. And it was February. So, but it was behind brush, and all I could see was the head sticking up, but you could see that it was in the water. And there was only one other person camping there that night. And it was a man and a woman about 7 or 8 campsites up along the creek. It was standing in the water looking towards their campsite. Didn't know I was looking at it. So I tried to move. I was like, by God, there's one right there. He's in the water right now. And so I'm using the camera to try to move through the darkness. You know how hard that is to try to use a thermal. Yeah. So because I didn't want to turn a light on. Well, that was stupid, because I'm bumping into everything. I'm making all kinds of noises. Next thing I know, I finally make it only one campsite away to get even closer, and he's gone.
Yeah.
But they're there. They are there. They don't, clearly they don't come through every night, but they come through there. And the reasons that they would come through the park way back when I had my encounter was twofold. My friend Keith Perry, who was researching there, he stayed at campsite 30. That's why I went to campsite 30. He said there was a little one that ruled that park. He said it's there all the time. That has to be the little one that I saw. It has to be, because it's the only thing that makes sense. Also, the big male that I saw. Keith got a picture of that big male. Can you show that picture, Daniela, of that? I've got it circled in red. It was about 100 yards outside of the park in a baiting area where Keith was baiting them with like buttery, salty popcorn and stuff. And he was up there one time putting out his popcorn, and he got a huff behind him, and he had his video camera. He said he just spun around filming in a 360, and then later was looking at the film to try to find where that huff came from. And so what you're going to see is a video clip, or just a still picture from up the hill. And you can see it looks like a gorilla.
Yeah.
You can see the split in the chest, and you can see the skin showing through the lighter skin on the chest and on the shoulders.
That's big boy.
Yes, I believe that is probably the big male. Now, here's the interesting part. The big male that I saw that night, probably the one I saw, I didn't see a color because it was just dark. When I saw him, the moonlight was behind him. I saw the hair coming through the shoulder. All I saw was darkness. So
there's two there. This is what you saw on the back of your truck.
Yeah.
This tall one, a little juvenile.
Yeah, that one, and the juvenile moved in behind the tailgate. But anyways, so he's probably reddish, because my friend said that the big male is a reddish color. Well, my friend's wife, name was Darla. She had red hair, and he said that little one seems to love my wife. And I'm not being disparaging to any redheads out there. I love redheads, but she was very loud. She was a loud woman. So think red hair around a campfire, being all loud and laughing real loud. Well, for some reason, it attracted this young one. And my friend Keith, he said he said one time she got in the car to go into town, and he said that little one took off through the brush and was chasing her car, and he watched it jump across the road. And he described a way that it jumped across the road. He said its knees were pulled up all the way to its chest as it was sailing through the air.
That's a trip.
So think about what I'm saying here. The little one really gravitated towards his wife, almost in an affectionate way, with her red hair. Dad was red.
Yeah.
Could there be a correlation there?
Sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Definitely.
So needless to say, it was his stories. At the time he told me these stories were just stories. I hadn't had my encounter there. I had never even been to that park. He and I were meeting up at the Kiamichis, and we became friends there, and we spent a lot of time in the Kiamichis. And he was
So
like,
you were, forgive me for the interruption here. You were literally able to go back into this place that you had heard stories about. And what happened then? Was there any confirmation of what the guy said?
Well, that all happened my first night there, where they came up to my truck, they came out of the woods. All of that happened the very first time that I was there, and I was the only one there. There wasn't a camp host. We actually came back from the Kiamichis, and I dropped Keith off at his house in Pauls Valley. And I went to that park, and he said, make sure you go to campsite 30. And so I did.
Listening to an anecdote got you your first encounter.
Say again?
You listened to an anecdote from an eyewitness and went to the same place and had an encounter.
Well, there was a lot of things that come into play as to why I had what happened that night.
But it was the same place as the anecdote.
Yes, it was the same place. But and if you listen to my whole encounter story, I believe it was the little one going through the park, getting into each trash can. At the time, the trash cans were the round metal ones with the lids, and they had a chain holding the lids, and then they would have a cinder block on top. Very archaic way of keeping park trash back then. But something was going through the park, dragging a stick. I could hear the stick being dragged. He was hitting metal lantern posts as it walked by, and it was checking trash cans and putting the lids back on. That all happened before I actually saw him. So what was going on at the park that was so important for that little one to be going around checking the trash cans? Because it was in the off season. They should be smart enough to know that there's no food in those trash cans in the off season because nobody's camping. But what I didn't know until I found out later is Dr. Charles Hallmark, who lived in Sulphur, had been baiting trash cans. He had his own sighting, and he even wrote a book about them. And he was baiting trash cans with baits to get their fingerprints on cups and stuff that he would put in the bottom of the trash cans. They were coming through the park well after he had stopped doing those experiments, looking for his baits. And so again, I was the recipient of something that he had already preset up.
Right.
So Keith was having experiences at campsite 30 because of his red-haired wife, and Dr. Hallmark was baiting the trash cans, and I had a convergence of being the lucky guy at the right time in the right campsite in the middle of them checking the trash cans. How lucky am I?
Yeah. Well, you did it. That's the thing, right?
Right.
You just went and did it. You know?
Right.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I know how lucky I am by meeting the right people and paying attention to the right details and getting in my truck and never making a noise and having the windows taped up with blankets so that nothing could see me. And they thought my campsite was empty. It was great. It was fantastic. But going there so many times afterwards, I've talked to people there who've had encounters. I talked to probably an 80-year-old guy that was walking through the park as I was climbing up out of the creek one morning, and I had my fire department sweatshirt on, and I was climbing up out of the creek. I was looking for evidence and stuff, and he was walking along one of the trails, and his wife was about 20 or 30 feet behind him, so he was outpacing her. And when I came up, he said, "What are you doing, young man?" And I said, "I'm just looking for footprints." And he looked at me and he goes, "What kind of footprints?" And he looked back at his wife, and she said, "Go ahead, tell him." And I told him about my Bigfoot encounter there, and I said, "I'm looking for Bigfoot prints because I've seen them here in the park." And he said he saw one himself one morning when he was hiking. It was on a trail ahead of him, and it went off into the woods. And clearly his wife was like, "Go ahead, tell him." So she was probably tired of him talking about it. So that was interesting. I talked to a guy that worked a chef at a restaurant in Sulphur, saw my fire department sweatshirt, and the waitress goes, "Wow, you're a long way from home." And I said, "Yeah." And I never hid what I was doing. I said, "I'm down looking for Bigfoot evidence in the Chickasaw Park." She says, "You're going to want to talk to the chef." And I said, or no, she said, "You're going to want to talk to the owner." And I said, "Is he here?" She said, "Yeah, he's the cook." And so he came out and sat at my table. And when he was 12 years old, riding his bike through the park, he said something was following him, and he crested a hill and he stopped and looked back. And he said a little one about the size of him, he was 12 or 13, I guess, a little one stepped out onto the road that had been following him while he was on his bike. And so he said, yeah. And then he was telling me some other, he said it scared him so bad that he didn't go back to the park till he was in college. And he said, I was there. And he said, what are some of the things that they do? I said, well, they throw rocks like crazy. He said, are you kidding me? And I said, no. I said, that's one of the things they do. I said, why? He said, because I was back there when I was in college with some college friends, and we were getting pelted with rocks all night long. And we almost got in a fist fight because I thought it was one of the other dudes jacking with me. And so I said, well, it was probably Bigfoot's throwing rocks. He's like, I don't want to hear that. He said, then that means they're more common back there than you'd really believe. And I said, I think they are. So these are the kind of people I'm talking to that live around there, that's had things happen, never reported it, but we're okay with discussing it with me because I discussed it, because I opened up the discussion first. Also along with this lady, Beth Reeves, who had her encounter up by the church, these things have been going on for a while there. I can't wait to get this thermal drone because I need to spend some more time at this park.
Yeah.
But if you want to, I was doing some experiments with game cameras, and I was trying my best to hide them in situations where I already knew that they would come into your campsite because I had it happen. So I said, well, where can I put a game camera and have it just not be out of the ordinary? And so I set up all of my supplies on a picnic table, and I think they had concrete picnic tables there. There was no way to move a picnic table. And there was a lantern post, and I put baits on the lantern post. Now, according to Dr. Charles Hallmark, he said one of the baits that he found that they really liked was Fig Newtons in his trash can baitings. So I took some Fig Newtons, put them on top of the curve part of the lantern post. You can see Fig Newtons at the top of the curve. Mm-hmm. And then I hung a bag with some baits in the bag. And then the game camera sitting on the table with a bunch of camping supplies all stacked around. It was hidden in the middle, pointing towards that bait bag. So what you saw then was a picture of me just checking the bag the next morning. I looked at the bag. It was not molested. The cookies were still there. I just assumed there was no pictures on the game camera because the baits are still there. But I'm sure Mark can attest to this. They're not always motivated by baits. Baits are not clearly food baits. They can get food very easily. That is not a big motivational factor for them. Curiosity is. But anyways, so I didn't know at the time that I had two pictures on the game camera. The two pictures, it's a cutty back camera. Now make sure you stay on this picture. It's a cutty back camera. At the time, they were like $400 or $500. And I was trying to buy the best equipment I could get. And back in 2006, that was it. And there were like $500 cameras from Cabela's. And so at night, it switched to black and white photos. During the day, it would take color pictures, but at night, it would just take black and white pictures. So here's something that came up to the table, low to the ground, so low to the ground that all you caught was its head. Now, if you look at that washed out white figure, and the reason it's washed out white is because of how close it is to the camera, you don't see any ears. You don't see any pointy ears that would identify that as a dog, cat, possum, raccoon, any animal that coyote, anything. It's something with a round head covered in hair, and you can see two protrudents on the side of the head that may be ears. You can see them on each side of the head that may or may not be ears on the side of the head. Mm. Now, if that was the only picture I got, it would just be an anomaly where I'd be like, man, that could be anything. Well, except anything that doesn't have ears on the top of its head. But the next picture really paints a better picture. The next picture, it stands up and is at the table, and you can see its armpit and shoulder.
See all the
Joker's got a big arm too.
Yeah, that was huge, isn't it?
Well, but you don't know how. I mean, he was clearly very, very close to the camera, so he could have just been real close to the camera. He doesn't. I still think it's the juvenile, just because even my friend said it runs the park. That juvenile is there all the time, and I saw a juvenile and the big one. And given that its head was round and not pointy, like the picture that I had circled in red, where you see it had a sagittal crest and a pointy head, this one has a round one. So really, we're just going to have to assume that this is probably the juvenile.
Yeah, it could be, man, for sure.
Anybody who can't see it, because I couldn't originally, it's the white thing, and then you can start seeing the fur coming off the arms, and it's got that triangle at the bottom is the armpit.
Yeah, you can actually see the sweep of the chest muscle there, with a hair flowing back under the arm off the chest.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
He's all up on your stuff, man. Were you missing anything on the table?
No. Well, I didn't really look at the table for anything that was missing. Matter of fact, when I saw that there was no baits taken, I might have just kind of moseyed around and never went back to the camera for quite a while, because I just assumed no other pictures were taken. So I probably opened up a couple of containers and used some stuff before it was too late to even check to see if something had been taken. But it didn't look like anything was taken. Basically, it was containers, like Tupperware containers with lids still on them, all sitting on the table as a way to hide the camera in the middle of all that. So that was an instance where they're used to coming into campsites. You can confuse them with your location of a camera. You know, if it's not on the side of a tree all by itself, then it's not as worrisome as sitting amongst other supplies that they're used to seeing.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. If any of you guys are going to go to the Chickasaw Park and spend a week there, leave a camera on the table at all times and let it record all night long. We'll see what happens.
That's true.
Could that work where you're at, Mark? Could you leave a camera amongst other stuff that might? I mean, you seem to be getting different results there, don't you, as well?
Yeah, we have campsite that we go to that they come into and take things on a regular basis, and the problem has been camera batteries. Not that they're going dead from some kind of stuff. In those situations, when we were camping, the battery would die on the camera before it had an opportunity to record anything in the wee hours, or it would be the wrong type of camera. The infrared stuff seems to cause them problems down here for some reason. I get all kinds of weird interference, and then the camera, not recording properly, or it's nothing. Most of the time, it's nothing. But again, these are situations where, we're going into new areas, and so we're trying to determine behaviors right off the bat. Where it would be, what he's describing would be like somebody coming behind us, having listened to our experiments, and then, taking advantage of that situation and continuing the experiment. That's basically the same thing going on. And so you're going to continue getting the data, because what we found is these guys habitualize pretty quick on a situation. With the apples, it's like candy, man. I with apples, we have a certain way of doing it with apples, but I can tell you, they come for the apples more than anything else down here where we, you know what I mean? So,
well, at one point in the Kiamichis, when I was spending time with my friend Keith, I asked him, when he was telling me all this stuff that was happening at Chickasaw Park, and we're in the Kiamichis, I said, why in the world would you come here when you've got that going on there? And his exact words were, I wanted to encounter some wild ones. The ones there are not wild.
Yeah, they've been around people.
Yeah, and so that's why we spent so much time in the Kiamichis before I was able to get there. But listen, there's other stuff that I found in that park. One, I was telling Mark in the pre-show that I read a report where a lady coming out of the bathroom was knocked on her ass. Something hairy had come running around the bend on that outhouse thing and knocked her down as it was trying to vacate the area. The bathrooms are set up to where there's a men's side and a women's side, and they're maybe 16-foot, cubicle. Well, anyways, so I spent my time looking in those bathrooms because I'm there in the off season. Nobody's camping, so I don't even have to worry about any women being in the bathroom while I'm there. So I'm looking for evidence inside these bathrooms. I found laying outside of one of these bathrooms. In the women's side, you know, they have the little containers on the sides of the stalls for feminine, for hygiene, for feminine products. I found one laying outside, and I did not take a picture of it, but I did show my friend. And the string, and it's the cotton with a string, and something bit it completely in half, and it was spread thin, and you could see a half round bite mark taken out of it.
Wow.
Where something bit it clean with teeth, and what was left was the string and half of one, and it incisor bit it. Wow. I should have took a picture of it because it was awesome. Right. But that was the first inkling that I got that they're going in the bathrooms, for it to go in there and take that out of one of them container things. Anyways, so I've got 2 pictures showing one time when I was in there where I found a hair stuck in all the way up towards the ceiling in one of the turnstiles going into one of the restrooms. There was a dark hair stuck in one of those things, and it was way above my head. So, of course, when I saw that hair, I thought to myself, and I did give it to a biologist friend from another organization who said that it had the configurations of other, supposed Bigfoot hairs. Didn't have a medulla or anything like that. So it was just tore off and stuck up in there. So that made me think, by God, they are going into the restrooms here. How scary would that be to walk in and have one already in there or something to that effect? Anyways, I went around to the women's side of the restroom at the same time I found that hair. And on the women's side of the bathroom, I looked for all the same evidence. I looked on the mirrors for any fingerprints or licking or any saliva or anything like that. I was looking for that on the mirrors. I was looking for hairs on the women's side, since I found a hair on the men's side, and didn't find anything. And then I went to the door, and I was frozen because I looked at the door, and there on the door was a dusty palm print with fingers where the hand is closed that pushed the door open. And the hand that pushed the door open was about 1.5 times the size of my hand, and it was dirty. The hand was dirty.
That's huge. When you do that comparison there.
And there's running water. There's running water in these bathrooms. So I would think if a woman or somebody, well, I'm assuming it would be a woman on the women's side, if they had hands that were that dirty, they would just rinse them off before they come out. So something went into that bathroom with hand 1.5 to 2 times the size of my hand and pushed the door open with a closed fist. What kind of animal do you think naturally would use a closed fist to push open a door? And the hand was dirty, dusty, that would probably put their hands on the ground at times. What do you think?
I mean,
Yeah.
That's it, buddy.
Exactly.
That's all.
Isn't that awesome?
It is. It really is. And you can see. I mean, you can actually see the
when you can see it. When you can see it line up like this, and you're there, it's like it's magic,
And
outside, I go in. This is what's up there, and then coming out with a big handprint. It's like
each one of these things, when it stands alone, is very minuscule in the whole picture. But you start putting all of these things together, and they are in this park system, man. I mean, it's not every night, but they are there. And if you're there long enough and you're paying enough attention at the times that you need to be paying attention, which is basically 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, which is basically the time everybody else is asleep. It's hard to be up at 2 o'clock when you've been up all day and your adrenaline's flowing and you're exhausted by 2 o'clock, and it's hard to stay up past 2 o'clock. But that's the time you need to stay up if you want something to happen in these parks, man.
Yeah, man, it's like the wee hours. But like you were saying, it's one thing. Like if you just took the guy's word and then never went in there, and you'd be telling a story. But just on what you've shown, you've been able to confirm that something that matches eyewitness descriptions is in the same area as all of this other phenomenon, this little evidence trail that you have. And it's the same evidence trail everywhere you go, right? It's just different situations. And then there's this invisible perpetrator. But you guys actually were able to catch the perpetrator, and that's the good thing, right? Because now we know he has a big hairy head, right? And huge hairy armpits, and his arms hairy too, and it's much more hairy and misshapen than a normal man's, right? You can almost kind of see where it's like it looks a little off, like, you know, bulky, little bulky, man, you know, like they're putting a huge guy in a fursuit over that, right? I mean, give me a break, man. You know, you got corroboration on every end. So for me, I get it. You know, I've seen him. I know it's real, so I can see it. You've done.
Now, I took a picture the next day after my encounter.
Say hi to Shane. Hi, Shane.
Yes.
Hey, how are you guys?
What's going on, man?
I took a picture.
Not much.
I took a picture after the day after my encounter. My friend Keith drove up from Paul's Valley. I mean, I called him the night that they were on my truck. I was like, "They are on my truck, man. What do you want me to do?" I said, "There's one of them's climbed on my truck." I thought it was in my truck at the time, but it was really only on the tail on the bumper. But I thought it was in the bed, and I was making some phone calls while I was sitting there. I mean, I said, "I'm going to have to start my truck up." Well, anyways, so he came up the next day, and he was all excited. He was like, "Oh man, I can't believe this happened. I mean, I knew you'd probably see one, but I didn't know that all this would happen." And so he was there, and we took a picture of me standing on my bumper to show how big that thing was. That's how high its head was around my ladder racks, above my ladder racks. So when I measured my ladder racks from the ground, they were 7 foot from the ground. So he was neck and head taller than my ladder racks.
Wow.
No.
So that juvenile's about just under 7
Yeah.
foot.
So the juvenile was about my size, about 5.5 foot.
That's right. Okay, got you.
Wow.
That is
That's a trip, man.
scary.
I've seen people messing with my truck, but if I look back and saw that,
Yeah,
I'd have been like, what?
you'll stroke out.
If anyone wants to hear that encounter, don't go now. But after the show, if you want to hear Randy's encounter in full, it's Researchers Report 106. So do check it out because it is a fascinating experience.
What's going on, Shane?
Not a lot. Just working my butt off and communicating back and forth with Randy as much as we can. And I think he's been doing the same thing, working his butt off. And we're getting ready to get back at it hard.
It's always nice when it's getting ready to happen. You know what I mean? You get that anxiety, a little bit of anxiousness to get it started, you know?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot more planning than usual. A lot of times we go out to the 400 together and we don't make a lot of plans because typically plans get waxed, you know, when things start happening and you just kind of have to go with the flow. And so we got into a habit of doing that. And we've had some time off due to all the COVID craziness. And I had to go out of town for work for quite a while. And so we've spent that time just really brainstorming on a lot of things and working on some other things behind the scenes that have we've been working on some things for several years, for at least a couple of years now. And we're to a point where we're able to basically show our hand a little bit and start doing some things that we've been wanting to do with the right people. And so we've got I've got a buddy out in Hollywood. He's a director, producer, and he's a closet Bigfoot junkie. And he made contact with me a few years ago, and we became really good friends. And we've had some options to do some things. Before COVID hit, we were looking at a little Netflix ordeal, but we've really been adamant about getting with the right people and having everything in place so we can completely control what is going on. And as far as the editing and stuff, usually that goes to a production company. And then you never know what's going to happen as far as the production company and the producer, so we don't want no part of anything like that, and have made that clear. And so long story short, I invited this buddy of mine out in Hollywood to come in this year. And, he's been wanting to have his own experience. And So I said, let's do it. And while you're here, just, help us document. We document every time we go out. And he said, absolutely, and he's got some cameras that we could never afford that, he'll bring and whatnot. And so in the midst of this, he's got a lot of friends that are in the movie industry. And he ended up linking up with a lady who is an Emmy award-winning documentary filmmaker. And so long story short, we're taking them out with us this summer, throughout the summer on several occasions. And we're basically bringing them in, one, my buddy is the main thing is so he can have an experience. And now we have this well-known documentary filmmaker who is going to come out with us. And she's a skeptic. I mean, she believes us when we tell her our stories, but she still has that skepticism in her. And that's a great thing. We're looking forward to that, because everybody that's been out with us, that have seen these things with us, they're not skeptics, they're believers, maybe not knowers yet, but they were believers when they went out with us already, So she's going to be the first real skeptic that's been out with us. And we look forward to that, because we know if she's out there 4 or 5 times this summer with us for 5 days at a time, that she's going to have an experience, and it's going to end up involving her within the documentary itself. She's going to have to become part of it, because she's going to have experiences, and she's going to be voicing all this. Me and Randy are going to be mic'd up 24/7. They're bringing in a lot of nice cameras, and we're not going overboard with the cameras, because I made it clear from the get-go 2 years ago that I could never do anything with a crew, like a camera crew. It just won't work that way. I don't think in any situation, but especially in the 400, in the situation out there. We've never had more than 4 people there. We've had 5 once, but 4 is the max that we want there at any given time. And so we're going to do it with them this summer. They're going to come in, they're going to document everything. We're going to have some nice cameras. Me and Randy are working on, getting this drone and being able to utilize it. And the main thing, they're going to be documenting everything with this. And I will say too, this is the first female that is going to be stepping foot out there on this property with us. So we're kind of excited about that too, because there is a male and female juvie.
Well, hey, can I throw something out there? We
Sure.
did have a guy out there with us that was exuding a lot of estrogen, so he was close to being female.
Gotcha.
So yeah, true story. So we're gonna basically just kind of see where that goes. There will be a documentary made out of this. Her documentaries are sold to like HBO, Hulu have bought several from her, so she's well into the business. And our hope is that once she has her experiences, she's going to want to keep coming and documenting what we're doing, because I think once she sees, like, she's heard the stories and stuff, but once she sees what we're doing, I think she's going to be blown away and just completely amazed with it. And Mark knows this as well as me and Randy. Like, once you have an experience, there's 1 or 2 things that are going to happen. You're either going to be hooked, like diehard hooked, or you're going to walk away and want absolutely no part of it. And we're pretty sure she's going to be hooked with her.
Well, we'd been sitting on top of some thermal footage that we were hoping to do a next documentary on our own. So since we're not going to be going that route, and now that we've got these other 2 producers involved that can take care of all that kind of stuff, we've decided that we would go ahead and share the thermals that we have caught up. So on Mark Nubel's Beast TV show, we're scheduling. We've already done 1 show where we caught one in the Briars, possibly, and now we've got the one where Shane approached the juvenile scheduled with Mark Nubel, and then after that we've got a belly crawler that we caught on thermal that I sent to Mark Nubel today, and he sent me back, "That is awesome. When do you want to schedule it?" So So we're going to be letting people see some of the thermals that we're catching out there, just so that people know that we really are catching some good stuff.
Yeah, we've been sitting on a lot of stuff for a long time, and at some point we just kind of decided to sit on all this stuff. And at some point, like once we're able to show these things up close and personal and do it on a fairly consistent basis, we thought we'd be able to throw it all out at once and let people see the whole thing, because like Randy was saying earlier, you have all these pieces of evidence and on their own, they're nothing. And you start compiling them and they become a little something. But until we have like legit evidence, up close and personal footage, and no stopping the camera and collecting DNA evidence after this thing walks away and collecting it from where it was sitting or standing on camera, it's going to take something like that. And that's our goal. Is most people probably know when these things come in around camp, we approach them. Randy will typically lead me out to these things using the thermal camera. He stays in camp and vocally leads me out to these things. And so we're setting some things in place to get thermal and 4K footage up close and personal on me, so I don't have to carry cameras or anything like that. They'll be small, very small cameras, and working on some things like that we're gonna try to employ once we're consistent with it. And that's what we're working on now, is the consistency of being able to go out there and make this happen every time they come into camp.
And just I see some of the questions scrolling back on the comment, and just so that everyone is aware, we've had no reason to go beyond that. These things are physical, living, breathing beings that are adapted to their environment, that are probably evolved alongside of us, probably one of the many hominids from the past that has survived alongside of us and has been able to remain hidden. There's nothing in our evidence at all that needs us to go anywhere but the physical with these things.
Yeah, we have the same experience. And what problems we do have, based on the evidence and the data that we have, it's man-made and it's being executed by men. People are in our way down here.
I would go that route. I think first, at least explore it. And
it's been 6 months of experiments testing it. I've literally had only the camera in my hand get taken out 12 expeditions in a row, while the one in my pocket was unaffected, and I shot the rest of the expedition with it. It happens at my truck. I'm not even in the research area, and they're killing my cameras. Whoever, I don't know. We'll find out. We're working on that now. So, but it's man, you know what I mean? I spent 6 years documenting these things without that problem. And
since you brought that up, I'll say a little something about that.
Yeah, now it's going all crazy. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
We've had a black helicopter come in over our camp several times out in the 400 and circle our camp, and it's black, nice, unmarked, has a white cross on the bottom of it, and that's it. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to speculate and say it means anything necessarily, but the landowner also had a picture of that same helicopter hovering over one of the fields on the upper part of the property just before dark, as the sun was going down. So, but
it's not fair. It's not fair to say that without telling him what is close to this property that the helicopter would come from.
Right.
That's not fair, because we're going to make them speculate all crazy and government.
True. Very true.
Well. In any other subject, you would be speculating wildly, but not in this one. This one, stuff happens, and you would think that the budget in America doesn't allow for this kind of stuff, but in the end, there's some serious going on down here. You know what I mean? You got $15,000 worth of equipment going dead all at once between 7 researchers. That's not a coincidence when everything was quiet, and we got trimeters reading while it's happening. Everything's quiet, nothing's going on, everybody's filming, and then all of a sudden, this thing's going off, and everybody's cameras are dying. It's a trigger. Something's going on,
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, I wanted to get back to the Chickasaw Park. I've never been there with Randy, and I've heard these stories from him, and always wanted to go there. And at this point, Randy's hashed this up, and I am I'm excited to go to this park with Randy. We're going to make that trip this summer. Yeah, yeah, and Randy has some great ideas and ways to use the drone in that area because he knows it fairly well, and has a pretty good idea of these things and how they're running up and down the creek and getting certain parts of the park. And so I
never even heard of that. The stuff he's describing where they're just doing things like knocking a lady at the bathroom, like that's not an accident. They don't make accidents like that. I mean, come on, man. It's a bathroom, man.
Yeah,
these guys, the stuff he's describing is like a research gold mine.
The thing that's so cool about this place, though, is that Randy knows other researchers besides the one that he's mentioned that have researched there and whatnot, and so many people have had experiences there that he's came into contact with. Not to mention all the possible others that Randy hasn't made contact with, or have never told anybody, or whatever. Yeah. So I'm pumped to go to this place, and I'm hoping that when we do go, that me and Randy will spend 5 or 6 days there, so we can really get down and dirty. And if we have to,
can I tell you guys a little story from Arbuckle Lake, which is
you didn't catch that, Shane.
There's Veterans Lake, which is right by Rock Creek, and it runs by Veterans Lake. And then beyond that is a big lake called Arbuckle Lake. I went to a campground at Arbuckle Lake with my family when I bought a camper, because that was the only way I could get my wife and daughters to do it with me, was if we had a camper. They wouldn't do the tent. There's no way. So I got a camper, and the only place you can use it is up by the other lake. So I'm there, and I'm like, well, I got to talk to somebody about Bigfoot. So I found the camp host, and I said, hey, I had an encounter at Rock Creek, which is only a few miles from here. I said, can you tell me, has anybody reported anything? Has anything happened to you as a camp host? And he said, he looked at me and he goes, you're a day late. And I said, a day late for what? He said, last night around midnight, 2 women came banging on my camper door saying that there was a prowler around their campsite. And he said it was 2 adult women and various aged kids in this one campground. And the trail going down to their campground was by a cove and surrounded by woods. And they said something came around that cove and was looking into their campsite. And he said, that might be what you're looking for. And I said, and it happened last night? He said, yes. He said, when something like that happens, as the camp host, we have to assume it's a person up to no good. So we got everyone up out of the campsite, and they were standing on the road. And I went down there with my flashlight and was looking around. And he said, I could see where spider webs were broken, where something had come around that cove, and you could see where all these spider webs were in the tree, but you could see where they were broken, where something came through there. And he said, so I called the park rangers, and they came down and did a small investigation. We assumed it was a person, but it might not have been. So the people said it didn't have a flashlight. Whoever was there in the woods looking at them didn't have a flashlight.
It's like, and I always say the same thing, man. Until I do my job better, man, people are going to keep getting away with this crap. You know what I mean? They're like, well, we have to assume it was a person. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, if you live there, and the camp guy knows better. The camp guy knows better. The host, he's probably hears 15, 20 of those a year. Yep. He thinks, oh, man, we got those hippie squatters again. This hippie squatter.
He was very nice. He was very pleasant. He said, as a matter of fact, he said, I got another story that might interest you. I said, what? He said, when I came in to open up for this season, he said, it's been closed for the whole winter. When I come in, he said, there was a big clump of reddish brown hair stuck on one of the overhangs where something hit its head or something and left a big chunk of hair on one of the gutters at one of the outhouses or the bathroom or the shower room or whatever. And he said it stunk pretty bad. I said, Did you keep it? He said, no.
It's those extra tall hippies. Why keep the hair?
Right. So, it's got me excited about the park. I mean, even though the park is built up a little bit more, they've changed the park. They've cut down a lot of the cedars. They changed the trash cans to bear-proof trash cans. And there's some other places that have built up across the creek that weren't there before. But these animals don't disappear. I mean, they don't just disappear and appear. So where are they at? I would venture to say that they may be a little further out, but they still would occasionally come in, I would think, because they're still around. We just need to spend longer amounts of time there at the park with the right equipment, and you'll probably encounter them again.
Wow. Well, look, let's get your other pictures, your other images up before. I mean, we're not running out of time yet, but this print here, this track.
That was the second print of 2 prints that I found, and they were going up into briars and crossing a field. I went up, I climbed the bank and looked into this field because the tracks were so fresh. That track right there has a blade of grass in the heel that was pulling up out of the track. So that's how fresh it was, and there was water pooling in the heel.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a great track.
This is the one.
And that's the first track of the 2. The second one slid, but that one was a pristine track right there of the right foot. And the left foot actually had a slide mark to it as it went up into the briars. And it was a young one. It was only about an 8-inch track.
I love those, man.
Yeah.
Like, hope for them.
And that's not going to be a person, is it? I mean, I mean,
it could be, because I was there, so a person could be there, but its direction of travel was straight across the creek, where a person usually walks along the creek. This thing crossed the creek and went up into some very nasty looking briars, and they're barefoot. So that makes me think that it's what we think it is.
Yeah, most kids, besides that, man, most kids have parents, and most parents aren't letting their little
You'd
kids
see other tracks there, yes.
About shoes. You know what I mean? And the shoe thing is huge. I mean, the shoe thing. Let's talk about the shoe thing. If footprints that are small are an issue, let's talk about shoes. You know what I mean? Because in the end, I don't know about you, but I'm not going camping and running around in the forest without my shoes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
everybody gets taught, you know?
We have multiple videos of trackways that we're going to start releasing. Some of these trackways, I would just quit counting at 50 tracks. That would be my max, and following tracks and counting them through this particular area. And we have tracks, one in particular that I'm going to show in a trackway. All 3 individuals' tracks are there, and the juvenile female steps on there's a pointed stick sticking up through the track, 3/4 to an inch high. And if I would have stepped on this, it would have went through my foot. I mean, it was pointed. This thing stepped down on that, and you can see how the foot like almost molds around it. Okay. There's no hollow area in the track where that thing didn't compress around that stick. And there's no re-step. Like if we started to step down and felt that, we would immediately pull our right foot back up and re-step, and there's no re-step in the trackway.
Yeah.
So
good observation.
Super interesting. Super interesting.
They've either got, really hard skin or some sort of pad, like a dot. Like I mean, I don't know.
I think they have a pad, somewhat of a pad, and I've got a picture that may show that too. But
you know what's interesting? People get that same thing. There's videos on YouTube where you can literally watch guys from last month in South America taking basically what they used to lathe planks out of to their feet, shaving off 1.5 inches of callus because they wear their whole lives. And it just becomes a huge 1-inch thick pad. And you can see it when the guy's walking around. He's got a huge pad that sticks out on the bottom of the sides and on the back. It's like, what? But, it's just callus, it just builds up over years.
Some of these tracks actually show a little bit of a bulge. Like it's showing the edges of the pad bulging.
Yes. I've
being
seen
compressed
that.
down. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Pads look a bit porous, don't they? There's a sort of texture to my dog's pad when you look at them. I
Mhm.
just wonder if you ever pick that up when you're doing a cast. Do you pick up the texture of the
I've got casts that have some dermal ridges in them, and also some areas that look like almost almost porous or like gritty, like grip tape
yeah,
almost.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've
and I
been
wanted
saying.
to mention I wanted to mention another thing while Randy's on here. So we've had some time off and stuff, and I've been back out and confirmed that they are there since I've been back from Colorado and whatnot. And Randy recently, we've been for the past 4 years, I've known that they are leaving the southwest part of the property, and the homeowner or the property owner had witnessed them coming back across the road up from a holler on the northeast corner. So we've theorized that they have a circle that they kind of follow. And Randy, on a whim, we'd been talking about where these things are going. They're on the property for a week and a half to 2 weeks, and they're gone for a week and a half, typically. So, Randy got on Google Earth and looked to the northwest a little bit, started looking at different areas, and I'd like Randy to tell the story because he went out and
Well,
did it. But long story short, I'll let him tell the story. But Randy got us into a property that is just a mile and a half, 2 miles away, and I'll let him take it from there.
well, the road to get there is pretty rough, but on the Google map, it just looks like a road. And so I was like, man, yeah, I could go there. And I could go way up or over there. And there looks like a way I could get down to this creek, and maybe I could find some footprints. So I was just going to spend the night at that area and walk down to this creek. But when I get over there, I find out the road is much rougher, and it's called, well, I can't even tell you what the road is called, or you might pinpoint our location. But anyways, so I'm trying to find this particular pull-off area, and there was a cabin there, and I pulled into, and I went to knocked on the door, and a guy was actually building a cabin with a Morton building, where you turn a Morton building into a cabin. and he came to the door, and I was like, hey buddy, how's it going? I said, my name is Randy Harrington, and I always wear my fire department shirts when I'm talking with strangers, because I want to immediately give them where they can feel at ease with who I am as a person. And since I'm a retired firefighter, I've got a lot of sweatshirts and t-shirts that still say fire department on it. So we were talking, and I told him what I was doing, and I said, it's about Bigfoot. I said, we're researching a property not too far from here. And he was uninterested in the subject, but he said, you're welcome to use the property if you want to. You can go down there and camp. And he took me down there. He has a trail riding machine. So he took me way down, and I was even worried if I could even get my Explorer down there. But he said, oh yeah, you could get it down there. And so he took me down there, showed me his property, and he says, you're welcome to stay here. And we've since become friends. I spent the night down there. Could have possibly heard a knock or two up on the ridge above me. It's where two or three ridges converge, and I was down in the middle of all of these gullies where they come together. So very good location along a spring-fed creek, crystal clear spring-fed creek. That's what you want to have.
Yeah.
And so now we're friends with that guy. He's given us okay to come do research, and he'd be tickled pink if we could ever cast a track and bring it up to him from his property.
That probably won't take.
Yeah. And tell him about the guy he had cleaning up his property.
Oh yeah. He had a guy cutting some wood and doing some cleanup down in that gully. Had some things happen, and I sent him some audio of a whoop, and he sent it to his friend, who said he had some strange things happening down there, and said, by God, that's exactly what I heard.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
So we're hoping that we may have, Randy may have on a whim accidentally found a possible location that these things are coming through when they make this circular route that we think that they make. And if that's the case, the guesswork, there's some guesswork to it when they're going to be there, when they're not going to be there. But, if I'm out there consistently, I can get that time frame down.
I know.
But this will allow us to, the week and a half that they're not there, to go to this other property and
Pick them up.
hopefully run into the same group. And if that is the case, this guy's already completely on board with us being there, as long as we keep it quiet, just like we do the 400. And you know, we may have the other location, which is just mind-boggling. That if it is the case, it'll just blow me away that Randy found this place on a whim.
Yeah, it almost sounds more fortuitous if it ends up working out, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
It feels like as well, it's all, you know, it takes a while, doesn't it, to get to certain places for things to start happening, and you put in the hard work and suddenly things start coming to you, I think.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
it seems like you're connecting with the right people, or maybe it's just the time now where more people are feeling easy to talk about it. I don't know. But it feels like it's all connecting and coming to.
I've always felt like I'm lucky. Maybe it's hard work. Luck sometimes disguises itself as hard work. But you know, I met up with Shane, this guy's property, all the things. I've met up with Keith that set me up at the Chickasaw Park. I've always seemed to put myself in these very good spots, but I work hard to get in these spots too. So you can't take that away from the equation either.
That's the whole thing, man. That's the whole thing. And here's the thing: with all of this is anecdote without the observations, and that's what, you know, you guys are doing really good, man. And it's like that. It's like, you know, how much time can I devote to the observation? Because the more I do, the faster things move along in my research. And I'm pretty sure that's probably like what you guys are going through. Yeah.
Yeah. Our schedules this summer have worked out to where we're gonna be able to spend more time in the 400 than we ever have. And we're gonna have, you know, these two people that are in the business that know how to work cameras, work the audio, and, you know, like, we're going to have them at our whim. We're basically just going to keep doing what we're doing. They're just going to document for us. You know what I mean? So
That's good.
yeah. Yeah. So there's some, for us, like timing, like, you know, you just mentioned the timing and stuff, Daniela, and the timing is just kind of came into play. Everything kind of happened on its own. And that's what we were kind of hoping for, you know, for it to happen on its own. And we've had people involved and other people involved, and just haven't found the right people, the right team to come in and get it done with us and help us, you know. And
Right.
And
I guess the word is it's evolved organically, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's crazy that you say that, because my buddy out in Hollywood, this director, and Randy can attest to that, just a few weeks ago, we were getting ready to do a Skype meeting with him, and it's one of the things that he's been telling me for a while is, you know, let's let it happen organically. And we were waiting for the right time for us too, you know, with our schedules and
I mean, but you've always
to a certain point, you know, in within our research. That's a big part of it. And
a little bit what's different about you as well is, like, you don't care what people think about what you're doing. And you've never been into the entertainment. You don't even hardly put anything on your YouTube anymore. You're not interested. You're focused on what you're doing, which, you know, is a great thing, because you can't supply. It's not supply and demand, is it? You can't produce Bigfoot on the spot, film it and put it up as a video. And, you know, I think the fact that you just focus on what you're doing and you're not interested in, it's not that you don't care what other people think, but you've never really, you just got on and done it your own thing, haven't you? You've just.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm like that for sure. And I just kind of keep to myself and run under the radar and do what we're doing. And Randy, on the other hand, you know, Randy's the same way, but still the opposite of me. Like, you know, he'll like you've heard in his stories tonight, he'll talk to anybody and tell anybody I'm out here Bigfoot researching. So what? You got a story for me? We're both like that, you know, just kind of different ends of that spectrum, I guess.
Yeah,
no, it's nice to be appreciated also. I mean, especially in this arena, you get people who say, man, we really appreciate the way you do it, and the no nonsense approach. That's always nice to hear. I mean, I can't say that it doesn't drive me on, because I do it the way I do it from the very beginning. I still do it the same way I've always done it, which I think is logical and very goal oriented. And I've never swayed from that. I just now found a partner that is similar and lets me be me and in Shane. And that's really worked out nice. But yeah, I like to have people's acceptance, especially in this arena that is so flip floppy and, you know, on different realms. And I like, you know.
Well,
So.
you know, I've always spoke highly of you both. You know, I've always said, if you want to see what people are doing, have a look at what Shane Carpenter does, you know, and the experiments that you've done. Because I've always thought, you know, you've been solid guys in this community that don't give any BS, you know, and you just, you know, I don't know, just like you two. I like the way you do things, and you know, you really put your all into it, because you spent a lot of time in that spot, and it's paying off. You know,
Yeah,
slowly.
You're coming out with stuff like this, and you're really doing a good job, because there's plenty of people going in and not coming out with anything. And so the observations and then the directions of the cameras and all your equipment and all your ideas and your experiments are paying off, and that's rewarding to see in this field.
Yeah.
Period.
definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely feels good, you know, when you come out with some evidence, whether you're going to show it publicly or not. You know, like we get so excited sometimes we can't contain ourselves, you know, and especially going in, you know how it is, Mark, man. When you're on the way there, you just cannot contain that excitement.
Oh, man.
Danielle, you mentioned my YouTube channel, and I will say, I'm almost finished up with a video right now that I'm going to put out. I haven't put out anything in a long time, but this video, as a lot of people know, the property owner died, and I had actually sat down and interviewed him, a long interview with him before he passed, and I'm working on that video right now, almost done with it, and I'm gonna put that video out on my YouTube channel, and I'm kind of doing it with a heavy heart, because we became really good friends. He was a good guy, and so I'm trying to be real meticulous on how I present, you know, this video. It's important to me, and his wife, I'm taking her a copy of this video, and so anyway, I'll be putting that out, and I'm going to start putting out some other videos, some other things that I've had sitting on the burner for a long time. I've got tracking videos where I'm, you know, in the Kiamichis with Randy, and we'd had activity the night before, and I tracked this thing down the mountain for 2 hours, and shows, you know, everything from breaks to twists to all these different things that you're looking for, you know, when you're trying to follow them. And so we'll be putting out some stuff like that. Randy's got some stuff, you know, that he hasn't really released, and we're going to put some of that in video format and put it on. We also have a website. It's almost ready. And
just to give somebody a teaser, I'm not a tracker, don't know anything about it, but Shane, he will show you things that dumbfounded me. He would say, look where this thing was coming up the hill and walking. And he says, you know why I think it's right-handed? And I say, why? He said, because every 4 or 5 feet, which would be the way it swings its arm, you'll see that there's something broken on the right side of the tracks. So it's reaching out and grabbing something and breaking it as it's walking. So it's probably right-handed. Those are the kind of details that you need in a tracker.
Definitely.
Yeah.
well, and another thing that I've kind of been able to, you know, and I could be wrong, of course, but one of the things I've noticed in these twists, when you're tracking these things and you're following them, and you'll see twists here and there, just small saplings, and it's almost like they do it subconsciously, like they're not thinking about it. They're reaching out and grabbing things ahead of them. And sometimes I'll find them on both sides. A lot of times though, I'll find a dominant side. But what I've found is I think these things reach out, thumb down, and they grab the sapling, grab it, twist, and break. That's how they get this twisting motion. So when they reach out, they're reaching out, you know, knuckles inside, thumb down, grabbing it and twisting as they walk, and doing this motion, pulling the elbow in and hitting that twist. And I could be wrong, but I've tried this over and over and over, and, you know, every way I can think of, and it seems to be the best logical.
You can see it.
They're doing it, and it's not a big deal, you know, to figure something like that. Like I said, I could be wrong, but it's
No.
just more insight. You know, it's like a tick that they have almost. They
You
just do it naturally.
You can see it in the twist.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen hundreds of them. I've tracked them just like you, man, and seen the same thing and made the same assumptions about the right hand thing, and through water, because you lose them. You know, you get punch holes the first couple feet, and then you're tracking and you're relying solely on disturbance above the water now.
Yep.
And for half a mile, and then getting lucky at the end, being like 20 feet off course, and then finding them again. Oh man, there's nothing like that, you know. Over like an eighth of or half a mile, and you're like, man, I don't know, but you know, and then you get that sense, and that you're like, damn, and you find them again. There's nothing like finding them again where he comes out of the water. Oh, bro.
Yeah, and that can be tough, man. It can be tough.
Hey, Shane. See, so Shane is good at what he does, and he's spent a lot of time working that skill because he's self-taught. I admire that like you wouldn't believe. Me, on the other hand, I'm having to up my game so I can stay up with his game. And my game is a little more on maybe on the trickery and the techie side. I'm just going to lay this out there because I think it's such a great idea. I wanted to hide a game cam up under some brush, very hidden, but in front of that game cam, I want to dig a hole and put a recorder in the hole that I've preset up for that. It has timed talking where for 30 or 40 minutes, there's silence. And then I will say, hey, what's going on out there? But have it be in a hole buried in front of that game camera. So if it's up on a ridge, they're walking around above us throwing rocks, and then they hear something. And it's that timed recorder that I've got buried and hidden in front of a game cam up under some brush. So maybe they'll stop and listen. And then 30 minutes later, it'll happen again where I'll be like, hey, it's 2:30. What's going on? And then that's it. So at some point, they're going to be up under this brush. Like, where in the hell is this coming from? And the game camera is going to snap a picture of them.
That's great.
Isn't that nice?
It's a great plan for sure.
I hope that works out. Definitely.
He bombards me with ideas like this randomly. Call me randomly, and I always know, I can tell if he's thought of something new by the excitement in his voice when I answer the phone. You know, as soon as I answer, I know whether I'm getting some new ideas or not.
It sounds like Ian Carey, actually. He probably did the same thing to you, because I just, matter of fact, before this, I had just called him, man, and I was like, I got a really good idea, and I got a beat on something, and I know where they're laying down, right where this area is. And I'm like, and it's so ridiculous what's going on. I was like, we could do this. And he's all like trying to get off the phone, you know, because it's all, you know, it's like, you know, the work, you know. So.
Yeah. Well, even though, you know, this year we're doing a lot of the same old as far as the, you know, when they come in around camp, our job is to get close to them. And like I said, we're going to have people taking care of the filming process this year. So we don't, that was kind of a burden. You know what I mean? I'm sure you understand.
Oh, I understand.
Like when I'm approaching these things, Randy's worried about me, right? And I'm keeping myself collected, trying not to worry about the situation I'm putting myself in. And the last thing that you know I'm going to think about, typically, I mean, just from the experience of doing it several times now, is the camera. You know, like I have a camera in my hand, just so they see it over and over, and they're, you know, so they get used to seeing that in my hand. But I haven't turned it on yet, and we don't know if they're going to react to the IR light. So a lot of this stuff is going to be taken out of our hands. We don't have to deal with it anymore. They're going to be taking care of that. So it's really going to free us up and really let our minds, you know, I've kind of hated the process of trying to document all this stuff. I really do. I absolutely hate it. You know, I hate having to go through all the audio and all the video. I hate editing. Yeah. I mean, I hate every aspect of that side of it. And that's going to be gone for us now. And they're going to be taking care of that. So it's really going to, I feel like it's going to allow me and Randy to kind of flourish within what we're doing, taking that completely out of our mindset. All we have to worry about is just doing what we're doing. And that's it. It's going to really allow us to focus. And we're going to be trying, even though we're going to be doing a lot of the same things, we're going to be trying a lot of new stuff. Randy's had a lot of time to, brainstorm and come up with a lot of ideas. And we're not just going to take these two people to our base camp. We're going to go camp at our old base camp. We're going to go to Crawler Hill. We're going to go to 4 different places on the property throughout this process. So they're not getting it's putting them in a new situation, over and over and over. So it's going to be great for them, because each time, the first 4 times they come out, every single time we're going to be camped somewhere else, and we're going to have a different experience, because they do different things at different places because of the setups that we have, the places that we have set up where they can come in without being seen compared to where we're at. A couple of these places, we set them up so they can only come in one place without being seen. And then they do, so it allows us to pre-plan a little bit. And anyway, it's going to be a lot of the same old, but a lot of new stuff too. And I'm just so excited to get on with this summer.
It sounds
exciting. Yeah.
It was really good meeting you guys tonight, man. I'm really glad that I had an opportunity to meet you guys and listen to what's going on. And again, man, this is a research team that's really working hard and doing it and putting out some quality evidence, man. So, kudos to you guys, man. And the hard work that goes into it. This is somebody who knows about it. And I understand what you guys are doing, and bravo, really,
Well, it's easy to convince a lay person. It's harder to convince an actual researcher. So we appreciate that coming from you.
Yeah. I mean, I've evaluated a lot, and just, talking to you guys, I can tell you think along the same lines we do at Crypto Reality as far as how to get these guys on film. And that's really my thing, is like, everybody can move forward and say it's real and everything. But until we learn how to study these things in a way that we can, get it to where it's like studying other animals, in my mind, there's always going to be that setback. And so that's what we've tried to do. And it really looks like you guys are doing well, man, and succeeding at what you're doing. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I want to say, I wanted to throw out there too, real quick. My buddy that's out there that's coming in to do this with us is also bringing 35 millimeter cameras, and we're working on getting an old school reel-to-reel camera, possibly the old VHS, maybe even, just to take it back a notch and see how these old cameras may help or not, but we're going to throw some stuff in there like that too. Just to experiment and test some of the old stuff.
Definitely worth a try. Guys, check out Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. And there's a few things on there, isn't there? And people can look at, and then they can wait for this new stuff to come out, the stuff that you're going to add to it. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. And we will, of course, have to have you back on again, because there's never enough time talking to you guys. But I want to thank you both. Randy, cheers for coming on. Shane, of course. Mark, thank you. Everyone, please go and hit the like button. There's like 400 in, and there's only like 150 likes. If you can smash the like button for us, and please leave a comment after the show, and just help to get this show, the channel, noticed. Those are the best things you can do, is to just leave a like and a comment or a dislike, whatever. It all goes in the right direction for us. But until the next time, guys, probably late show Friday night. I'm guessing Kerry will be back. But until then, everyone, take care and good night.
Bye-bye.